Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this United Nations World Data Forum session that is dedicated to innovation and synergies across the data ecosystem. We will be dealing with a topic that is in the mind and hearts of many of us in these days. The topic is innovation during the COVID crisis, why it was and it is more critical for official statistics than ever. To discuss these topics, I have an excellent panel that I will introduce in a minute. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Emanuele Baldacci. I work with Eurostat. Eurostat is the statistical office of the European Union. The panel today will be introduced by two speeches that will ignite, hopefully, the discussion. The first one will be presented by colleagues from INE, the statistical office from Spain, Adolfo Galvez, who is the head of dissemination, and Belén González Olmos, who is director of tourism and science and technology statistics in INE. The second Ignite speech will be delivered by Monica Scannapiego, who works for the Italian Statistical Office, and she's responsible for information and application architecture in Istat. Then we will be moving to our panel, and we will ask them to comment and tell us what are the lessons that we should be learning from things that worked and didn't work during the crisis, and also looking forward at what more systematic innovation processes should be put in production for our statistical offices. And we will have four contributors to this panel: Andrea Vermeer, who is head of unit of European and International Coordination in the Federal Statistical Office of Germany, Destatis; Bartel Braxma, who is Innovation Manager in Statistics Netherlands, CPS; Pascal Riguier, who is responsible for internal audit at INSEE, the Statistical Office of France; and last but not least, Ville Virtanen, who is Deputy Director General in Statistics Finland. So welcome to all the colleagues, welcome to you all who are attending, so many of you. So you have a chance to send us further questions using the app, as you know. And we will start now with the first of the two Ignite presentations. So I give the floor to Adolfo and to Belén for the first of the two presentations. Please, the floor is yours, Adolfo.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Emmanuel, for the presentation, and thank you for inviting us to take part in this session. I would like to share with you my screen in order to have my presentation. I hope you can see it now.
Yes.
Okay. So we would like to present here some of the innovative actions that INE has developed during the COVID-19 crisis. It was, of course, a very difficult situation for all of us, and sometimes some people could thought that it was almost impossible to maintain our activity. But in the end, this story is about turning challenges into opportunities, and so make it possible. The statistical production will continue along the year. We publish all the statistics that were foreseen, and even we have push up some innovation activities that is the focus of this presentation. Of course, we have to deal with many challenges in our work because from one day to another, we have a different work organization, very much conditioned because data provision was compromised, because face-to-face interviews were cancelled suddenly. Also, many businesses were closed, and the data, the flow of data was very difficult at that time. It was the very first moment in the crisis. Also, we had received many new demands from users, especially from institutional users, demanding new indicators, high-frequency data in order to evaluate in real time the situation, and also more disaggregated data on our surveys. And just to point out also a third dimension of challenges, it was the communication one. There were many data providers in the media and different official and non-official sources. And there was some controversy on the figures. There were also fake news in the playground. So we have to manage all this difficult situation. To to deal with this crisis, we put in line many different actions, but I would like to underline three of them. One was the coordinated response with the European Statistical System in order to ensure the quality and comparability of the figures that the statistical offices were producing. It was very important to have guidelines and to share practices between all the statistical offices. Also, INE this situation as an opportunity to speed up innovation projects, especially pushing new experimental statistics for attending in an agile way the new demands for the users. And finally, also in the communication aspect, transparency was very important to communicate to our users how this crisis could affect the data we were releasing at that time, how the revisions can be foreseen in this context, or the difficulties we have in different situations. As the result of all of these things, we can say now the result has been positive. It is not a desirable situation, but the final result, it has been very positive because we have introduced some cultural change in our work. Now remote work is a reality in our office. Also, we are now much more familiar with using new data sources and new methods of estimation. And we consider that now we are able to be more agile to respond to the user needs. Also, we have more experience in having new agreements and partnerships with private companies and even public organizations as data providers. We have used more intensively administrative data. And because of we are monitoring, of course, the social media, we would say that the image of the institution has improved as a trustworthy institution and also innovative, and it has been also important to have a strong collaboration with health authorities and the different ministries in this situation. We have developed a joint project in this crisis. To be more concrete and to show how INE has responded in this time, we deployed very soon a specific information section on COVID-19, providing direct access to specific data that were of very much interest of the society at that time. We developed also very early a short-term indicators dashboard in order to monitor the economic activity, and now it's still useful to monitor the recovery process. And as I was saying before, we release many statistical experimental statistics that we have in the laboratory in the final phases. We speed up these projects. One of the most relevant figure at that time was the weekly data on deaths, because we were used to publish only yearly data because the administrative process were very slow in order to have the whole information. But now with new methods of estimation, we can provide advanced figures on this important data. And the second experience was to release the population mobility study using mobile phone data. It was a previous study prepared to support census round, but it was demanded to evaluate the lockdown measures by not only by central government, but also for regional and local governments. It was very important to monitor the mobility of the population to see if we could control this factor that was very important at the first time to control the virus expansion. So this was two important projects. It was a partnership with mobile network operators. We deal with privacy statements and worries for the society in this project, and we use very innovative dissemination methods, providing analytical capabilities for the users, and also publishing daily data, which was definitely a challenge for us. Now, Bede will continue with other experiences. Thank you.
Good morning. As my colleague Adolfo has commented, in the last year, we are working on looking for new sources and new procedures to meet the needs of the user of statistics. In the case of tourist service, we needed to improve timeliness and more disaggregate information. Also, we needed to cover some information gaps, such as the case of tourist dwellings. This became very relevant in the summer of 2020. And in addition, we have to find new methods of obtaining information. Here, it's important to say that this new strategy entails important efforts to get agreements with data owners and to develop new methods for data processing. I will briefly mention the three experiences that we have had in the tourist survey. First, we have projects with mobile position and data, also with web scraping with platforms, and also with credit cards. The first project is with mobile position and data. The National Statistical Institute has entered into an agreement with the three most important mobile operators to extract from the event database. Mention that these three mobile operators covering more or less 80% of total devices in Spain. Another important thing is that the three mobile operators follow the same methodology that the National Statistical Institute developed. With mobile position and data, the goal is measuring the number of tourists, both resident and non-resident, and their average stay. This project allows us to get more timely information, more disaggregate, and reduce the burden of the informant. The second project was to obtain the number of tourist dwelling by web scraping. The procedure implemented is, first, we make web scraping developed in Python to Airbnb, Booking, and VRBO. Then we access to all the accommodation from these three webs, extracting their characteristics, name, birthplaces, license, coordinates. Also, we have developed an algorithm to select tourist dwellings from all the accommodation extracted. And to finally, we have developed and the duplication algorithm to remove all the duplicate accommodation in more than one platform. The variables that we disseminate are number of tourist dwellings, bed places, and percentage of tourist dwelling over the total of dwelling. With this technique, we achieve greater disaggregations. As you can see, even we can reach up to census sections. The last new project is with credit cards. With credit card, we have tried to improve the indicator of foreign tourists spending in Spain. The bank transaction data that we receive include transactions made in person through a card at establishment located in Spain, and cash withdrawals at ATMs located in Spain. The Institute received information in aggregate tables, and we never get the individual information. The improvement with the credit card, we obtain the expenditure in the actual destination of each trip or excursion made by foreign travelers, regardless of the main destination. And with credit card, we offer greater disaggregation by foreign country of resident of visitor and by autonomous communities. Thank you. I think I'm in time.
Thank you, Belen, and thank you, Adolfo, for this very interesting presentation. I like the idea of turning challenges into opportunities, as you put it. Now we move to the Italian experience with Monica. Monica, the floor is yours. I think, Belen, you should stop sharing the slides.
Thank you, Emanuele. I try to share my screen, but yeah, they... Okay, let me see if I'm able to do now.
Now you should be, Monica.
Yes, I think I'm able now. Okay. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, you should put them in presentation mode, though.
I think I did. Okay. So thank you for inviting me to share the experience of Istat to face the COVID-19 pandemic. I will try to give you actually not just, let's say, a full overview of all the things that were put in place in Istat to face the COVID-19 pandemic, but at least some examples and some, I hope, relevant issues that we tried to address. When there was the pandemic, when there was the COVID-19 emergency, we decided to actually engage two main work streams. One related to response and one related to recovery. The one related to response included very quick and immediate action to secure our statistical production. This, of course, was very important for us and for the country itself. And the other strand was related to recovery. So again, quick actions, but that could come a little bit later with respect to the response ones. So I will try to give you examples of both these activities. In the response phase, as also mentioned by the Spanish colleagues, we had to face some issues like the fact that we had not anymore face-to-face interviews for our surveys, that there were high non-response rates and time series break. So what we did, a lot of things, I have to say. We have to change for some main survey our data collection strategies. For instance, our labor force survey, for which we were not able to do any more paper-based interviews, but we had to do telephone ones. But also our population census, for which we had to rely on our registers, statistical registers inside Istat. And again, in all the processing pipelines of our survey, we had to introduce several changes and innovations. So the whole survey pipeline was impacted by the pandemic itself. Let me make 2 examples related to how we had to treat non-response rate. One example is related to the use of a new source, and in particular AIS data. These are data that are present on ships. It's a remote sensing data that allows to trace ships. And given that we have quarterly maritime statistics to produce, in March and April 2020, we had the lockdown that blocked part of the passenger traffic. And the question that we had to face was, is the reduction in the observation due to an actual decrease in the phenomenon or to a difficulty in recording by the actors involved? So in order to answer to this question, we used these IS data, and these were very useful for understanding the phenomenon, and we were able actually to have a confirmation based on AIS data, and to understand that this data can be available aid in the use of in the production of statistics for us. Another example was related to an index that we produced based on Twitter data since 2018. This index is named the Social Mood on Economy Index, and reports the daily mood on economy by Italians. During the COVID-19 emergency, Istat suspended the consumer confidence survey for the month of April 2020, and the social mood was very useful in this period because it allowed us to actually monitor the crisis evaluation daily, understand the turning point on the short term of the mood on economy, and was used to support the monthly report on the Italian economic trend for March and April. So again, a new source, in this case, Twitter data, was used to support official statistics. With respect to the second stream of work, the one related to recover, again, we did quite a lot of things, new survey-based product of different type. We did a national survey on seroprevalence, but also specific surveys on enterprises and households in relation to the impact of COVID. But we also used new sources, and we also plan to use new sources. Let me just give an example and I will conclude. With respect to COVID-19 economic impact, by starting from our experience in the European Big Data Hackathon, we studied how to measure the impact of COVID-19 on import and export. And for that, we created Cosmopolitics, that is an interactive dashboard to predict and simulate international trade relations that use as sources Eurostat sources and Google Mobility Open Data. And for instance, for March and April 2020, this dashboard allowed us to understand the effect of the pandemic in terms of the change of the role of China due to the sale of masks, and as you can see, the centrality of China in this kind of trade is completely is much more central, let's say. Okay, so take-home messages. We learned that we really need to be very much agile and adaptive in order to face events like the COVID-19 one. And in this way, we are able indeed to play a key role in the management of this event. But in order to make the innovation that we introduced structural within NSOs, we really need to invest on the use of new data sources because they are very much important as secondary data sources, like also administrative data. But again, the timeliness of this data was very important for us. And also the design of business processes that are really agile and able to be reconfigured. We did a lot. We could have done even more if a message would have been more clear. Let's say NSOs can be not only provider of statistics, but also provider of relevant capabilities. We did in some cases, we could have done even in more cases. So that's one thing that maybe we should improve. And in which way investment on communication and partnership maybe are very relevant to us to empower our role with respect to this aspect. Okay, I'm finished. Thank you for the attention.
Thanks a lot, Monica, for sharing the experience of Istat. I like a lot the classification of actions that are more response-related and recovery-related, but also you have, together with the previous presentation, set on the table several questions. First of all, the question to the panelists that to which I will give the floor in a minute is whether they share the same type of experiences, but also I would ask them to help me try to take, in the interest of the audience, some take-home messages. Would you agree with some of the conclusions from the previous speeches? Is there any other consideration that we should be making, particularly to be ready in the future to address other types of emergencies, because crises are always behind the corner, unfortunately. So let's start with our panelists. The first in the line is Andrea. Andrea, what's your view?
Yes, thank you very much. And indeed, you will see what I'm going to tell you. There are a lot of links between us, so reflecting a little bit the same problems we had. So good morning, everybody. I have the honor to speak on behalf of Destatis to give you a brief insight on how we manage pandemic, how we are looking for consistent response and continue our digitalization process, and how we manage to guarantee highest quality of our data. So during the pandemic, the environment for production of official statistics is changing rapidly. We all already heard this. This is creating many new challenges for official statistics. During the pandemic, we have learned we are in Europe not used anymore to this kind of crisis. It takes time to reset our mindset, and it even takes more time to find back our emotional balance. However, it is now we have to deal with disasters, reflect on standardized working procedures, including the confrontation that there is not every time immediately clear evidence regarding the disease and its impact. In order to build an opinion, users change their behavior patterns. And Monica, you also mentioned the dashboards. Suddenly dashboards were en vogue in public. Our users are looking urgently for serious information regarding the pandemic based on facts. Suddenly our Destatis homepage had a rise of clicks compared to 2019. So in March 2020, we had 120% more, and even later in December, up to 573%. People want to know, people need data they can rely on and trust on. So these data and the other national authorities, we are working together with our 14 Bundesländer, managed to cope with this new demand. We modernized, like Adolfo said, also like in INE in Spain, we modernized internal organizational structures. So everybody knows now how to work remotely and what it means to be in home office. We found innovative solutions to meet the new information needs. Correlations with excess mortality was of utmost interest, maybe to find an individual explanation of how serious the situation is during the pandemic. Changing indicators and correlations, different approaches worldwide, gave an excellent example that using data, using our statistics is a question of interpretation and brings out various possible policy recommendations. For the German Federal Statistical Office, it was one major goal during the pandemic to maintain reliable statistics production. So what did we do? Let's become more concrete. We started to use methods such as web scraping and price statistics. Also, we had increasing business non-response rates. The discussion of timeliness of statistics results, which is not new to the whole debate, but the pandemic forced that it has a new dimension now. Therefore, we will continue to develop nowcast and flash estimates, such as GDP estimates, flash estimates. Furthermore, Destatis is providing more experimental statistics also from private data sources to meet the short-term data needs. We are running motivating hackathons to adapt our methods, considering intelligent estimation methods, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. What's also very interesting, another commitment to innovation is the hotspot monitor, breaking down the mobility of population every single day, which is also developed in the Corona app some countries are using. And this is a good and impressive example to demonstrate the potential of mobile phone data in the context of official statistics. Finally, let me tell you about the joint cooperation Destatis to develop an innovative open data portal for public policymakers, public authorities, people working in media, business, and academics. Destatis is participating in the development of the dashboard Germany. So again, a dashboard, together with other national authorities, research institutes, and owners of privately held data. The challenge is to implement a coherent quality assurance framework. We have to indicate the categories of each data producer. We have to provide metadata and quality reports. And in the process of trust building, we have to implement coherence checks for external data, which are produced on base of other definitions of quality standards and other frameworks of privacy regarding our fresh launched data protection regulation. So our aim in Destatis is to ensure more efficient and agile strategies together with our cooperation partners on national, European, and international level. We take over our responsibility to leave nobody behind. I'm the only one here being in Bern, so this is a motto we can hear all over, to leave nobody behind. So we take over this responsibility. So I think representing official statistics in these times matters to us. Yes, so thank you for the floor.
Thanks, Andrea. And we move now to Bartelt.
Yeah, thank you, Emanuela, and thank you for inviting me to this panel and this very exciting session. So I don't want to replicate everything that has been said already, because some things are quite obvious. So one thing that I do want to say is that as statisticians, we can be proud of what you have achieved during the pandemic. So sometimes people say, oh, statistics is outdated, old-fashioned, and so who cares? Now we have shown that statistics, and especially the good quality and trustworthy statistics, matters. And we also have shown that we can act in a very agile, flexible way and respond to users' needs. And that's something that I think is very important to realize, that we still can make an important contribution to society. Being in innovation, I want to look forward based on this experience, because what we have learned now is that if we do things in the right way, we can make a big difference in society. And that's what I want to keep from this pandemic situation, in the sense of never waste a good crisis. So we have learned that we can do much better than we have sometimes done in the past. We can be proactive. We can make a difference. There are some elements that are key to that. One has already been mentioned, the access to new data sources. So the mobile network operator data that both Italy and Spain have mentioned, social media data, web scraping, whatever. So the AIS data, all these new sources, they are there. So we have to make sure that we can use them, that we learn to work with them. So I'm very happy that the European Commission is now putting legislation in place, which hopefully will make it better for us and easier for us to access these data under good legally framed conditions, because that's very important. It all starts with data and real life observations. Another thing that I want to mention is that international collaboration is very important, because I know that during the pandemic, there were a lot of online exchanges of experience from countries, and countries borrowed from each other. Eurostat has taken a proactive role here as well in stimulating and coordinating European efforts, of course. So that is very important, that we collaborate and learn from each other. And I think also for this mobile network operator data, social media data, and so on, AIS, the groundwork for all of this has been laid in the big data project that Eurostat has launched a few years ago already. So because we were already prepared, you could say, so we could act very quickly. So that's really the basis of our work. So working together, creating sound methodologies, where I also like the Spanish examples where they said, well, we developed the methodology, which was implemented by 3 mobile network operators. That's something that nobody else can do, I think. Yeah, maybe academics, but they come from a different perspective. So we have the independence, the trustworthiness, and the quality awareness to develop this methodology and also get it accepted by mobile network operators. So I think from my perspective, these are the main takeaways: international collaboration, making sure that we have the right preconditions for access to the privately held data source and other data sources that are there. And last but not least, keep the good spirit and look forward and stay working like this. So thank you for that. That was mainly what I want to say.
Thank you, Barteld. And we move to Pascal.
Well, thank you, Emanuele, and thank you for inviting me to share the experience of INSEE. I see that we have many points in comments looking at the previous presentations. Well, in all statistical institutes, the problem was exactly the same. We have to adapt to a completely new situation in a very short period of time. In INSEE, the specificity is that we are not only an NSI, but also an institute for economic studies. So at the beginning of the crisis, the general director of INSEE asked the teams to estimate the fall in GDP and the fall in consumption. So we use micro simulation models to make forecasting. But then we decided to make things differently, and we started to use nowcasting, using which data. At the beginning, we thought of electricity consumption. We could use information like obviously pollution indicators, Google Trends, or whatever. In statistics, we gave preference to bank card transaction, to which the economic interest group we have. This interest group brought together main banking networks, and it has given an exceptional access to this information. So we did a kind of statistic compilation of this credit card data, and it proved efficient. Obviously, the way we communicate was important, because we said on our website that the quality of the information was necessarily not so high as in usual cases. So it was important to mention that. Secondly, as was presented before, we measured present population using mobile phone data, obviously. We had, difficulties we had was the fact that the data that we had were aggregated data given by Orange, And so the question of the way the data were aggregated, the methodology used was not so clear. So we could give information, but with a certain level of, imprecision. So third idea, it was during the crisis, it was necessary to give more frequent death statistics. So our death statistics became weekly. That was essential during this period. I mean, before the crisis, these statistics were absolutely, not exciting at all. But during the crisis, it was very important to give the statistics. Other ideas, we tried to use motorway tolls, because in France we have péage d'autoroute, and it's a very useful information to measure transportation. So I saw what Monica explained about maritime transportation. In case of car transportation, this information can be useful. Of course, the crisis forced us to accelerate in terms of mixed mode surveys. But I have to say it's a kind of forced mixed mode surveys, because we had no choice. It was impossible to make to have face-to-face interviews in case of social surveys or business surveys. So we had a kind of generalization of mixed mode survey during the crisis. Another obvious ideas, we used more and more administrative data. In France, we have a déclaration sociale nominative, nominative social declaration, which is monthly. So this administrative declaration is extremely rich, and for us, it proved extremely useful during the crisis. So. As a conclusion, I would like to say that the crisis showed that we, and when I say we, I mean, okay, but all institutes were resilient, and that we were able to adapt ourselves. And I think more quickly than we thought. We were in a way impressed that of our ability to change in a very short period of time. Now, the difficulty is that we showed that during a short period, the crisis period. Now, the question is to make it stable, to make it permanent, and to use these innovation in a regular way. So I think that there is no particular problem with the generalization of mixed mode, even if it takes years. Of course, I don't say it's easy, but I don't think that the crisis changes something. It just accelerates. I also think that it was, useful for us to generalize use of administrative data in different situations, not only in a particular production process, but in many different production processes. So that works. That's not so obvious about big data. Mobile phone data, credit card data. Well, in case of INSEE, I know the situation is different in other NSIs, but we don't want to pay for mobile phone data. So there are different possibilities. It's our choice. I think there is more, let's say, future in credit card data, in bank data. It's always a question convention, of agreement, and to make sure that this agreement work not only for a short period of time. So I think it will help. But well, as a conclusion, I would like to say that now the big challenge for all the NSIs is to make sure that we change. I mean, our production processes will be modified efficiently in a regular way. That's the main problem. Thank you for attention.
Thanks a lot, Pascal. And we move now to Finland and Ville. Ville, floor is yours.
Thank you, Emmanuel. First, I can say that I can share many of the mentioned experiences, and I'm not mentioning these experiences that were already covered. I try to give you additional view. I will share you with an example of situation room that supported decision making during the coronavirus crisis here in Finland. When the pandemic hit, an acute and strong need for analysis on virus, but also for analysis on effects of the virus on the economy and society arose. We are here in Statistics Finland established an internal working group with the aim to provide users with relevant information for decision making. Around the same time, we were also contacted by Helsinki Graduate School of Economics with an idea of launching COVID-19 situation room. We agreed, and with the cooperation and utilizing core competencies of different stakeholders, we established COVID-19 situation room. Statistics Finland offered research service platform and access to fast pseudonymized microdata, including some almost real-time registers, like, for example, labor earnings, furlough, housing allowances, and unemployment benefits. And Finnish top economists made analysis to support government decision making, and also a dedicated group of researchers supported decision makers to make most out of the new analysis. In just about 2 weeks, new service called Situation Room was opened. First report on enterprises most hit by the pandemic with up-to-date figures on furlough or laid-off workers and business subsidies was published on 15th of April 2020. And after that, the Situation Room published new insights into economy and society based on the needs of decision makers every week. What we have learned so far is that first, the data analysts need to be quite close in close cooperation with data users, decision makers. Second, we need pilot cases, and together with developing administration, we can raise awareness of the possibilities and further develop the data-based decision making. Third, we need to take care of the data security. At the same time, we need to have courage to use the data in ethical way. And finally, data has been proven to be with quite good quality. However, we would need to implement data quality framework to categorize the data quality. As I see it, this might be the seed for the new role of the NSI. Situation Room was very useful. Therefore, decision makers in Finland are now discussing how this kind of service would serve in daily decision making. In daily decision making, decisions are often also quite rapid, and the response of this, we are now planning for data room. This would be a bit longer pilot, and the aim of the data room would be to help decision making by providing quick delivery for up-to-date secure microdata for researchers and analysts, data mining and interpretation of data services to stakeholders, and promoting data-based decision making in society. We're also developing a national data quality framework for rating registers, especially registers quality, but this can be implemented to other data sets also. And in my opinion, this is where we should go for. We should be able to provide fast, up-to-date data, pseudonymized microdata for researchers, or then statistical report for customized needs on short notice. There are many aspects that could be further discussed about this, but here is what was in a nutshell in this Finnish case, and I'm happy to answer further questions if there are. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Ville, and thanks to all the panelists. That we have definitely plenty of good experiences and several lessons that we have learned from all of you and from the speakers. I'm just monitoring the chat to see whether there are comments from the audience, and I would summarize, given that we only have 10 minutes. Some of the questions, there are questions related to access to data, both administrative data and privately held data, and what facilitates them. Questions related to the use of this data, and particularly the importance to monitor the quality of sources that are not designed to be collected for statistics, and also more general questions related to the production of statistics in times of crisis, including the reliance on models. Again, the question goes into the feasibility on the one hand, but also the quality of the results, and whether we have the right instruments to monitor them. So I will give you the floor right away. You won't have time to answer in an elaborate way all these questions, but I hope that the conversation can continue also after this session in the chat. But let's say, if you have to summarize your final message for the audience in a one-liner, what that would be? And I will start with Andrea.
Yes, in one line. I think the most important thing to summarize, I will start in a more general way, is really to think out of the box. So it's over centuries that official statistics had a clear line also on standards and everything. And this is what we discussed. So the urgent need really to create new frameworks and to see, especially regarding privately held data, it's not wrong data, but it's just based on different standards, on different definitions. So this would be, I think, the highest challenge for me in this round.
Thank you, Andrea. Bartel?
Yeah, my main message would be proactive and collaborate both inside the statistical community, but also with the research community. So whether it's internal, as in the case of INSEE, or it's university, as in the case of Finland, and collaborate also with data providers. We have seen that they're open to discuss. And then especially the pandemic situation helped because everybody understood we were all in this together.
Thank you, Bartel. And we move to Pascal.
I would like to say quite the same things. Collaborate with data providers, and maybe a little bit more be interested in the way data are produced, because data are not given. You have to understand why they were built and what for. And having that in mind, you will be more efficient to build statistics.
Thank you, Pascal. Ville?
Thank you. Just to give some answer or reflect some of the questions. I think the cooperation with the register holders or the data holders, they were very aware of the situation. They were very aware that there is very big need for the data for database decision making, and every single authority we were contacting, they were very willing to cooperate. So the cooperation was very easy, and I think this is something I hope will follow also the future, and the cooperation will be easier in future.
Thanks. I hear the word partnership coming up very strongly together with innovation and also investment that are important to be ready when crisis strike. We still have a couple of minutes, so I will give the floor now to our speakers of the Ignite session. Maybe we'll start with Monica with a one-liner, and then I will ask also Belen and Adolfo.
Yes, Emanuele. John, just one remark on the quality of the result of what we published, one of the questions. I think that now it's almost 10 years that we have started using new sources in official statistics. So we have quite consolidated capabilities with respect to that. It's true that we still published most of them as experimental statistics, but we are quickly moving to production because we now also have some let's say, good results in terms of quality that we can really spend also with the brand of official statistics. So this is something that I would like to remark because, yes, there's a quality issue, but we are on the good way for solving many aspects of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And we conclude with our INE colleagues. So Belen, Adolfo.
Yes, just one word to say that innovation, of course, has proved to be very important to answer the society needs in this crisis. But I think this is very important to focus on user needs. It is not the idea only of having a monument to data or monument to new statistical methods, but we should strengthen the communication with users in order to know better what they need in every moment, and if it is possible to advance these needs. And now, Belen, please.
For me, it's very important to use new sources and new procedures to attend the users of statistics. And from the Institute, in my point of view, it's very important to make efforts to get agreements with the data owners.
Thank you, Belen. And we are now coming to the end of this session. So first of all, let me stress a few points that I learned. I think we are all proud for the response of the system and our ability to collaborate both among us, but also with external partners. And we are mindful that on the one hand, we continue to have an important role in terms of trustworthy source of information, but we are also increasingly asked to go beyond what is our perimeter because the demand for information is changing. And in doing that, we have been collectively quite effective with different experiences that came up during this panel very clearly. There is still a lot to be done in terms of consolidating these results and being, let's say, ready for production level statistics of good quality in several areas. But let's say it's a one-way direction. We cannot go back to the past. This crisis has also accelerated the use of models, the use of new data sources, and the reflection on the quality framework and how we should be using it in this new context. So with this future-oriented reflection, I think that there is more work to be done, also because, as I say, different crises are effect of life, and we need as organizations to prepare in advance, not knowing what type of crisis we will have to manage in the future. And this requires investments done in experimentation, in research, in being ready and prepared for the uncertainty. It's a fact of life, and I think that the system as a whole worked well in achieving these results. But the key word that all of you have mentioned is partnership. We cannot do this alone in our own organization, and we need to continue to engage with partners both in Europe and elsewhere for creating the type of alliances between public and private sector that would allow us to progress. I hope that this conversation will continue both during the World Data Forum, because in the other sessions there are several entry points that will allow us to continue this conversation. We will also continue to monitor the app, and thanks for attending and making your voice be heard also through the comments. We'll try to reply to those new questions that came up during the discussion. And with that, I want to wrap it up, close, and thanking the attendees, but also obviously the speakers. You have been excellent both in terms of content, but also in terms of time management, because we are ready to close the session exactly sharp at 10 our time in Central Europe. And with that, I would like to thank everyone and invite you to follow the other sessions of the World Data Forum. Have a good day. Goodbye.